So welcome back to The Lead. These are law enforcement stories told to you by law enforcement officers. My name is Anthony Rodriguez.
And I'm Fatima Simici.
And today we have another special guest with us, an infamous detective, Springer.
Weed Springer, yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, because, this is the only way we can get leads and keep the story out there.
You were one of our first guests in this podcast. Episode 1 was with Christy Luna.
Yes.
And so we want to talk again about Christy Luna, give everybody kind of like an update of what's going on. But when I tell you that you're infamous, I'm telling you, we posted yesterday on our Facebook, which is pretty funny.
Yep.
We were saying that we're going to talk to Detective Springer. We're going to go over the Christy Luna case. Stay tuned. And you gotta read these, man.
You have fans.
You're like a celebrity.
Well,
Everybody's saying impressive man with a passion. Thank you, Detective Springer. One of the best detectives we know. Our community is so lucky to have Detective Springer.
Yeah.
You're the best. Literally, you need your own fan club.
I think for those who haven't heard from Detective Springer, maybe you should introduce yourself a little bit.
well, I actually came here. I retired, took a 10-year retirement from the state police in Pennsylvania, and came to Florida because I had promised my wife a daylight job Monday through Friday.
Good choice.
And I couldn't get it with the state police in Pennsylvania, so I moved to Florida. And, of course, everything I had kind of fell through, and I ended up working for the sheriff's office.
Oh, wait. So you're saying everything fell through?
Yeah,
then you had to settle.
The job that I came down for, I learned about, how the system worked in Florida, and I wasn't happy with that. I was a probation and parole officer for a year when they paid starvation wages back then.
Wow.
And then I came with the sheriff's office in '79, and then I went with another state agency. After 3 months with the sheriff's office, I resigned, and I had a good lieutenant who told me, he said, "You'll be back." And I said, well, I promised my wife. So after 3 months...
You were back.
Well, actually, I left there, and then I was with this other agency for almost 6 months, and then I came back. And I promised him that I would stay a year, and I ended up staying 30 years.
Wow.
So
30 years. Tell us about, everything you've done at the agency.
Back in the day, I worked road patrol, then went into the D Bureau, and then went into homicide. I got promoted in '87, went to the road for 3 years as a uniformed sergeant. Came back in '90 as a property sergeant, and in 1992 I came back into the homicide unit.
Wow.
And then in 2004, we started the cold case squad, and I took over as the supervisor of the cold case squad until I retired in 2010.
So how many times have you retired now? I'm losing count. This is like
I
the third
retired
time.
from Pennsylvania. I retired from the sheriff's office, and I've been back since 2013 part-time with the sheriff's office.
That's amazing.
Tell us why you come back.
Well, I always enjoyed working cold cases. I worked cold cases as a supervisor when I came back in '92. I would play around with old cases. Because, people deserve an answer. I don't think we ever get them closure, but if you can get them an answer to what happened to their loved one and maybe get some justice for them, and it's a good feeling when you solve a case, an old case. And with all the new techniques and all the new DNA and all the new things that are coming out, it's very interesting. So I think.
Yeah, and don't tell this to any other detective, but you're by far my favorite one, especially in the cold case unit. And a lot of it has to do because you're always open-minded to new innovations and new methodologies to get the word out.
Yeah, well, that's part of, these aren't my cases, so I share, and if somebody comes up with an idea and can solve a case, I'm all for it. I don't care if somebody comes in and says, "Bill, I got the answer to your case." I'd say, run with it, solve it. John Cogburn, Detective Cogburn, he took this elderly female that I'd worked on, had DNA done, And John said, "Do you mind if I work it?" And I said, "No." and he redid some of the DNA, and he got enough, and he made an arrest on the case, which made me happy. I mean, I don't have to solve it. I just like to see them get solved. Doesn't matter who solves them. Like I said, I don't care if Santa Claus drags them in. I don't care as long as, we
as
can
long
clear
as
the case. Yeah.
you can bring justice.
This is why we like him.
Yeah. So, you guys have a great team up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys have solved, decades and decades old cases. And a lot of it, even the unsolved cases, we see the passion, the work that you've gone through for decades to try to solve these cases. And Christy Luna is one of these.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Such type cases. Can you tell us, I heard a rumor that you were at the scene when this actually happened 38 years ago.
Greenacres started the investigation.
Back then, Greenacres had their own police department.
Had their own police department. And it was almost right after John Walsh's son disappeared. And they started where the FBI came in. So the FBI and Greenacres initially started it. And I think within a week, we came into a system.
Okay.
So I was actually one of the original detectives assisting Greenacres.
Assisting Greenacres and I guess the FBI.
And with the FBI and Greenacres, we all worked in conjunction together.
So this was a big deal back then. I mean, it would be today. So let's go back a little bit and remind everybody, the whole case about Christy Luna, who she was, and what happened.
Well, Christy Luna was an 8-year-old little girl. She had left home to walk around the block, and if you look at the original podcast, I think we did it, I showed how close it was between where the store was and where her house was.
Right, you can literally look at the store from the house.
Almost,
like 2 blocks.
It was just catty-cornered. She left to go get some cat food. There was kids across the street, catty-cornered, that were setting off fireworks. They said she watched the fireworks a little bit, and then she walked towards the house, and that was the last she was seen. Never been able to find anybody that saw her being picked up in a car or anything else. And over the years, we've developed suspects. We had the Rambo brothers, Willis and Chuck, the original suspects, but we could find nothing to link her with them other than we knew she went to the Rambo house with her friend, and I won't mention her name, her closest friend went there, and we knew that Chuck and Willis were both molesting her friend. That's how we got the search warrants, and we kept the house searched to look for any physical evidence we could link Christy to the house, and nothing. Over the years, I come up with other suspects, other people that, better yet, people of interest maybe, have never really eliminated the Rambos. I mean, they're still there. And there's been other ones over the years. And as you're well aware, 2 years ago,
yeah,
I got what I thought was a great lead. And we went and we dug up the septic system.
Yeah, so let's stop there. So since you came to us many years ago about trying different things to get the press's attention and get the word out, we've done a few things at Media Relations. We created a documentary. We did a podcast, which is our first episode, and then we also did kind of like a publicity stunt where we handed over our social media over to Christy Luna on the anniversary of when she went missing, and she walked us through every minute of for the last 3 days that where she was with her mom, where they went to, how she came back, everything she was going through, so that people can kind of live through her last days. Maybe that would stir up some memories, and we did get like national attention for that. And then so when we did the podcast and the documentary, we received a really good tip from someone that thought it was a good lead.
Yeah, I corroborate everything that the tipster told me. Everything checked out, and I thought it was a good lead. And the sheriff's office is very proactive when it comes to cold cases and doing the right thing. Whatever it takes to get the job done, the sheriff's office will do.
Yeah, Sheriff Rick Bradshaw he'll give any resources necessary to solve these cold cases, which is, a great example of that.
Yeah, no, he does. I mean, that's one reason I came back in 2013 was because of the positive attitude that the sheriff has, and everybody in between, my sergeant, my lieutenants, the captains, they've all had a very positive and supportive attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it takes, we get the job done. And we'll continue doing that. That's why I'm still here, is because it seems like every year something new comes up.
There's new technologies and
new technologies and everything else come up, and
which are costly, but they're necessary to be able to,
well, you're not going to be able to solve a case if you don't spend the money. You got to spend the money. Whether it's travel, whether it's for DNA, you need to really spend the money. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but these places don't do DNA for free.
Right.
I mean, they're in business to make money, and they've got some very good new techniques that are coming out that are super techniques, and
that's why we use a lot of grants also.
We have a cold case grant now.
Right.
That we're using a lot of the money for doing an MVAC on old cases.
And that MVAC is like it's like the vacuum system.
Yeah, it's like a vacuum. They vacuum the clothes. So if we've swabbed them in the past, we'll MVAC them.
If there's any DNA in the
I
strands,
have like 5 or 6 cases right now at Bodie Technology for DNA that I've MVAC'd.
That's cool.
On. I'll throw a little teaser out there. In a couple of weeks, we've got another case that's coming up that we've managed to ID a victim from way back.
Oh, get out. Really?
Through new technology.
Oh, wow.
And with that new technology, I've learned some other new technology that I'm going to try on a couple old cases that I think I'm looking for some positive results. And if I don't get them, then we'll just go back to the drawing board. But,
Well, you got to come back and tell us about, that other case whenever.
Whenever we release it,
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
So let's go back to.
But anyway, with Christy,
Uh-huh.
Over the years, I keep getting leads. That's why I keep doing the podcast every way possible to keep it out there. Because maybe somebody will remember something. Maybe not this year, but maybe next year. I mean, this person came forward 2 years ago with what I thought was great information, and it just turned out it didn't.
Can you speak on that, like a little bit of like the story, or why did we went into that specific?
Well, she gave me information that the person that used to reside in that house had molested the kids. The fact that it's right across from where Bilk's store was, and I confirmed from the kids that lived there that they were setting off fireworks, that Christy was there and everything else. And then I found another independent witness that says, yes, he saw Christy there with those kids. So with that information, you have a child molester possibly. The guy was never convicted. This is all
hearsay and circumstantial.
Hearsay, but the one person confirmed it. So with that information, the house was being rented, so I got permission from the owner to go onto the curtilage and do the septic testing, because I didn't need to go in the house. And of course, we did the anthropologist team that came over, did a beautiful job.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
it was impressive.
Dedicated, hardworking. They got into that septic tank, they scraped it, they cleaned it, they went through every bit of the waste that was in that.
And I remember they were even going layer by layer.
Yes.
Sifting and checking every little detail.
Every little bit, yeah.
And there was
nothing. Came up with
nothing.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it was a good lead, and it just didn't turn out to be the right lead.
Right.
Which I know there's going to be a right lead out here one of these days.
Right. It just goes to show you that even 30 plus years later, we're still getting really good information from the public by doing these kinds of outreach and bringing the attention to these cases out to the public. So we're hopeful that hopefully after this podcast we might get some more.
I'm hoping, yeah. Like I said, anything. I follow up any lead that comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no matter what. If a lead comes in, it sounds good, genuine. Like I said, the sheriff's office is proactive.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Denver the other week on a lead. It turned out to be nothing, but I mean, they still sent me to Denver to interview the person. I interviewed the person, and it turned out to be nothing. But you have to do it. If you don't, you never know.
Okay.
But I follow them all up. If somebody comes in and they tell me something on Christy Luna, I'll follow up as far as I can.
Mm-hmm.
I may hit a dead end, but I'll definitely try to see what I can find out.
I don't know if it was this case or Rachel Hurley that I remember you were going to send the case to a set of team that were going to give it like a set of new eyes.
I presented this Christy Luna
It was
to
this one.
the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children the other year. And they came back with some good ideas, but, just nothing enough to move it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we can see why you have a lot of fans, and it's because you're one of the hardest working detectives.
I enjoy it. I don't need the I'm not.
Most of our law enforcement agency officers feel the same way that you do. You're not doing it for the praise. You're not doing it for the attention. This is all about your cases.
Yeah.
But we're so thankful to have someone like you in our agency that from week one with Christy Luna, you were working this case, and it shows that you've never stopped. You've never forgotten her. You've never forgotten Jenny, her mother. And you're always thinking about them and wanting to bring, some sort of solace to the mother and some sort of justice to whoever did this.
Yeah.
So hopefully, this is one of our recent renderings that our forensic artist created a few years ago. And this could be, hopefully what she would look like now. So if anybody out there has any information about Christy Luna, please, leave it in the comments. They can contact the agency or Detective Springer. You want to give your information?
Yeah, they can call. My office number is 561-688-4013. And if I don't get back to you right away, you have to remember I only do this part-time. So I work 3 days a week. And when I come in, I check my voicemail, and then I answer all the calls. And then I may be out of town, but I will definitely get back to you. So just have patience.
You're like a millennial. We don't answer voicemails either.
No.
Oh.
I mean, we don't get the phone call. We just let it go to voicemail.
Oh. Well, I answer my phone. If I'm there, I'll answer my phone. But if I'm not, then just leave me a voicemail and I'll get back.
I like when Detective Springer ends most of the podcasts with a message of what can you tell somebody that has even the smallest information or somebody that is just hiding information to protect others.
Well, I'd like to just say one thing before I do that. I know back when we first started these, we got some people that were very negative. They wanted to know why was Christy Luna allowed to go to the store by herself. Mm-hmm. Well, you got to realize this is back in 1984. The store is right around the corner. It's a neighborhood store, and all the kids went to the neighborhood store by themselves. My kids were allowed to go to the neighborhood store by themselves. You never thought about somebody picking up your kids. That wasn't one of the big things back then. Once it became one of the big things, then the kids weren't allowed to go to the store by themselves. But nobody should ever condemn the mother for anything back then. She was a good mother. Mm-hmm. She didn't put her child in harm's way that this just wasn't one of the things back then.
Right.
I mean, if you look at John Walsh, his son was taken right out of a store in a mall, just disappeared, and they did nothing wrong. But I mean, it just wasn't something that was out there like it is today.
There's nobody to blame except whoever
there's
did
nobody
this.
to blame except the perpetrator.
Right.
That's the only one to blame.
Right.
Nobody else. But yeah, And like I always end, any tip, no matter how small, how big, whether you just think it, I don't care. If you know somebody's name that I need to look at, give it to me. I'll look it up and see what I can do with it. I may not be able to do anything with it, but at least it'll give maybe the answer we need. We just don't know. And it's out there, and we'll keep working on it.
Great. Well, thanks again for being here with us today. We definitely want you back, especially when you solve a case. Let's talk about a good case that we solve, and we always love talking to you. So thanks for being here.
Well, the only thing else I can say is I may not solve it, but somebody else may solve it.
Yeah.
But keep looking over your shoulder because we might be coming.
Thanks.